Hi, it's Chris the Guitar Amp Tech from Sydney, Australia here. Today we're going to look at some simple maintenance things you can do on your guitar. If that sounds like something that may be of interest to you, go and grab yourself a coffee, pull up a chair, and let's get stuck in. The people at Artist Guitars have asked me to put together a couple of videos on how to maintain your guitars and amplifiers. So we're going to start by looking at simple maintenance things that you can do. So why do we need to maintain our guitars, you ask? Well, you touch them, you play them, you use them. And whenever we do that, we leave behind evidence of our presence. So we're going to do some cleaning and maintaining. So let's get started. Most of the gigs that I played during COVID were done standing on beer-soaked carpets with vomit and the occasional spattering of pee. Yes, it was mainly in my lounge room, you're right. But even not in my lounge room, you know, you take out your lead, your guitar lead, drop it on the floor, and it picks up those contaminants. Next time you plug it in, you bring those contaminants up from the floor and into your guitar socket. So that's the first thing we're going to look at. So what we're going to need is a cotton bud like this. I think they're also called Q-tips. And we're going to need some denatured alcohol. In Australia it's called methylated spirits. Can't remember what it's called in the US. But you know what it is. It's basically ethanol with additives in it to make it toxic, so we don't drink it. So give it a little dip, and then we're going to just clean that sleeve in that socket. Now that's our earth pin. That's important. Look at that. And this is a pretty new guitar. It's an Artist Guitars guitar. If you don't know Artist Guitars, they basically are the distributors of Joyo, Nuix, and Artist products in Australia and New Zealand. Look at that. That will have severely affected our return path of our signal. So that shield is just as important as the hot connector inside, which we're going to clean next. So give that a good solid clean. We're going to go in there and we're going to try and find this part. It's hard to do because I'm not looking at it from the way I'd normally look at it, but we're trying to get in there with our little Q-tip. What we're trying to do is basically just rub it back and forward on there to clean it. And not as much gunk coming off, smaller surface area. So let's get back to doing it like this. All right, that's about it. Now what you've got to try and not do, so we still picked up a bit of goo there. Yep. So a couple of things. Try not to get the little cotton butt bit pulled off in there. Fortunately, these are not coming off, but they can. And then you've got no option but to pull out this little boat connector. Now sometimes this little nut here can get loose. So you don't just go grabbing your spanner. Here we go. You don't just go grabbing your wrench and yanking on that thing like you're an ape. What you got to do, sadly, is get your screwdriver, undo these two screws, if it's a Strat, similar with other guitars, Les Pauls, you've got 4 little screws down here at the bottom, and you remove that plate. So this is one that I removed a little earlier. Okay, so this is what it looks like on the other side. If you have to take it out, you might as well give that contact a good clean there. You can see this is loose. That nut's loose. We don't like that. Poor contact. Eventually it'll fall out and this gets lost inside your guitar somewhere and you have to pull it apart anyway. So if I start winding this up just by the spanner, look at what's happening to the socket inside. It's turning, which means Two things. One, it's not really tightening the socket at all. And two, these wires, which are normally secured to the rest of the guitar, the volume pod or switch or whatever, is going to start twisting and, oh, this one's already grabbed. But the risk is that this is going to twist, and eventually, and very commonly, these wires are going to snap, usually at the solder joints here, or at the volume pot, or the pickup selector switch. Somewhere this wire will snap. And then you've got a way bigger problem. Best to do it properly in the first place. Take it off, hold the back of the socket with your hand, and then you can give that a good tighten. There we go. Now, will that get loose again? Sure it will. What can you do to prohibit it? Well, let's have a look. Let me just go in my little drawer. So, fellas, go to your wife's drawer when she's not looking and get yourself some clear nail polish. And then I would apply a little bit to the thread. Just a little dab. Good thing about nail polish, as opposed to a Loctite type of product, is that you can always crack that lacquer and get it off again. And you get that nice acetone smell in the meantime. Now, so I'm not sexist, ladies, if you need to do this to your guitar, go to your husband's nail polish drawer, get out some clear nail polish. If he hasn't got any clear, get pink or whatever he uses. Black. I used to use black nail polish in the 70s, I don't know why. Now, holding onto the socket itself, I can now tighten up that nut nice and tight. And with that nail polish in place, once it dries, that's going to take a lot more effort for that to come loose. Now, for most guitars, that's a pretty easy job. But on some guitars, like semi-acoustic 335, or like on a Gretsch, there's only one thing more complicated than tightening up a output jack. That's probably doing bypass surgery on yourself. So it's pretty hard. How do you get in there to hold the back of that jack? Fortunately, some clever little people have come up with this thing. It's, you know, called a bullet type of one, or there's other names, and it holds, so you press this little part in to the socket, it holds that jack in place, and then you turn, you hold that to keep that in place, and then you turn that, and you'll see that it's got sort of like a little socket or wrench type of fitting. That's only plastic, you know, it looks like a pretty good quality sort of plastic. You hold that in there, and then you put that on the nut, and you just snick it up like that, and that'll do. And that has stopped it from twisting around and snapping inside. Handy little thing to have. If you've got a semi-acoustic guitar with just F-hole access to pickups and pots, you have to have one of these. It's a must. Oh, thanks, Harley. It's very nice of you. Beautiful. The steaming of the milk could have been done a little bit better. Sorry, Dad. That's the best I can do without any opposing thumbs. Yeah. This is Harley. He's my security manager and barista. He's better at security than he is at coffee. Friction is our enemy. We need to treat friction at every point the string passes between the tuning keys and the string ball mount. Even if you don't have a whammy bar, every time you stretch a note, your string moves back and forward along the notch in your saddles. Any little burr can catch the string. Instead of allowing a wound string to freely slide, it can stop the string from returning back to pitch. So I'd use some very fine wet and dry sandpaper to smooth out each string slot. I'm going to get it out of the way. And I'm going to cut myself off a bit of sandpaper. This one's 400. That'll do as a start. Fold it over. Let's gently rub it back and forward in that slot. You just want to check that leading edge to make sure that there is no sharp burr there. And then once you've smoothed that off with 400, you can go up in various grits of paper to get it nice and smooth. Once you have it nice and smooth, I would then apply, it's all different sorts of brands. That's one that I've had quite a few years ago from StewMac called Guitar Grease. Here's one called Graphite All. Who makes that? GHS. And D'Addario make a nice one. There's also one that I use from Artist Guitars. I think it's made by Nomad, and it's a string lubricant, string instrument lubricant. It's a friction modifier like any of these. I would then grab a little toothpick. As much as this was effective, I tend not to use it anymore because of its colour. I can use it down here in the saddles, but I won't use this on the nut because it's black and it stains it. And who wants stained nuts? Let's be honest. So if you've got a nice shiny white bone nut, so I'll use something like this clear one, the D'Addario one, or the Music Nomad one. So then just put a slight drop on your toothpick, and I like to give it just a bit of a rub to get it in place. And that's it. Do that 6 times for each string, and that will now slide smoothly over the bridge. But we're not finished, are we? No. Then let's get up here to our nut. So also a sticking point. Now this Fender style of design where the strings pull straight is better than the Gibson style where the strings pull at an angle, and there's potential of binding here. And you'll see like PRS have come up with their own designs, so they can still have 3 tuning keys aside, but there's still a straight pull. Quite a clever design. Anyway, can't do anything about it. We just have to live with that. So once we've got our string loose from doing the nut, we're going to do the same thing. Just going to pop a little bit of that nut lubricant in there and just rub that in. Beautiful. Then you can tighten up and tune that. But what? Look at this. More friction points. Remember we said we got to minimize friction anywhere where the string moves, and when you whammy or bend a guitar note, that string is going to move under the string tree. So what you've got to do, once again, get the string out. Put some on your toothpick and then wipe it to the underside of that string tree where your string passes through. Even better, 1 Phillips head screw, pop it off, and then you can put your lubricant on. Even better. So that takes care of the string path. Now the next little job we can do is our frets. So I've just pulled the strings back, taped them down so they just stay out of my way, and I haven't taken them off. There's many ways of polishing your frets. Whatever you use, don't use steel wool, because you know that magnets are inside your pickups, and when you're rubbing with steel wool, guaranteed little fibers of steel will be attracted to the magnet, so keep steel wool away. Too many other options that are much more effective. If you have the time and the patience to tape off each fret. Thusly, go for it. I do it sometimes. Most of the time I just use these little fingerboard protectors. They expose, they're really thin, they expose most of the fret. Does leave the bottom part of the fret inaccessible, but it's still pretty good, and it just saves a huge amount of time. So just a few different methods I've got. One is if they're really badly oxidized, let's pick 4th fret. I use like really fine sandpaper, wet and dry paper, something like this one. I think this one's about 1200 grit. There you go. That's gotten off most of that oxidation. What was it? Yeah, 1200. And that's looking pretty good. Then I'd go up to 2000. After that, there's also this set of string erasers which come in all different grits. That's quite good as well. I use that a lot. They're a little bit pricey, but they last a long time. I mean, this is my first kit, and yeah, so it's got most of the grits there. And I've done quite a few guitars already, and yeah, that's what that looks like. If it got really bad, I suppose I could cut off that end and keep going. What's that one? That's 400 grit. Let's put that on fret number 5. Bang, got off most of the oxidation. Then I just work my way up, and the finest one in this kit is at 2000. So that's a real easy to use one. Then method of your choice. So there's another one actually I've got here. This one I think I got from StewMac, but I think they're 3M papers. You just cut a bit off, and because I've got such a bad memory, I just write on them. So that's 600 grit, 400 grit, 1200, and 6000. Wow, this is going to get a really fine shine. 8000. So that's how fine that paper goes. It lasts a long time. I just cut it off into little strips like this, and then there's a bit that I haven't used yet, and I just rub away there. And then once all that's done, let's just pretend I've done a really good job there. Then I get another cloth, and I apply the my fret polishing one. I get this from Artist Guitars, made by Music Nomad. Works a treat. It's not going to be as shiny as I'd like because I haven't finished the job, of course. Getting rid of all the oxidation, but you'll get the idea. You can see it sort of brings up a lot of that oxidation, gets rid of that. And then once you've got that done, get yourself a microfiber cloth, and that's not bad for a job that was only half-assed done. It's really nice and shiny, and just chalk and cheese. All right, you can imagine how much grime and oil and sweat and beer and vomit ends up on your fingerboard. So I give it a good clean. Now, I use this product called Shellite. I used to. I found a new product. I use this product called Shellite. In America, God, what's it called in America? Naphtha. Okay, so get yourself some naphtha, and then just give the fretboard a bit of a clean. And I just use my nail to get in there beside the fret, because that's where you get a lot of grime building up. If you haven't got nails, once again, use something like a toothpick. Just want it softer than, just break the end off it. Just want it softer than the fretboard material. I would definitely never use a screwdriver or anything like that. Give that a good clean along the edges. So it just picks up all of that muck. And this guitar hasn't really even been played that much. Right, so we've done that to our fretboard. You can do that to a maple neck as well. Then, lightly, I do it every time I change strings. But I've now switched over to a new product, what's on order, so it's not here yet. But Planet Waves, D'Addario, Planet Waves, have got this thing. I think I get it from Artist as well. It's called Fretboard Hydrate, I think it's called. So I'm going to give that a go. This is fretboard conditioner. I got this when I visited the PRS factory over 10 years ago. And look, you only use a little bit. It lasts a long time. People say, don't waste your money on it, use linseed oil or something else. You think, really? Really? For that little amount of usage, I'd waste my time with stinking linseed oil? Not a chance. So put some on, give it a good generous rub. But you don't need much. You just want to keep the fretboard moist. If it dries out, the frets can come loose. They can even protrude from the ends. And you've got sharp ends. I've got to say, this budget guitar has got really nice smooth ends on it. It's just crazy good value for money. Do that, you'll see it start to soak in, and then you know, I usually leave it for an hour or so, or however long it takes me to have another gallon of coffee. Then I come back, give it a good polish. It darkens the wood as well. It just gives it a really low sheen. You can see the grain in there coming out. Love it. Some people say don't use it. I say do. Your choice. But it's definitely good for the fretboard. Just don't overdo it. Don't overdo anything, but a little bit is definitely good for it. That's it. I hope you got something out of it today. If you did, you know what to do. That's about it for today. I got most of my accessories from Artist Guitars in Australia. You can also source them from New Zealand. I'm sure their products are available, like Music Nomad, I'm sure is available all around the world, Amazon, etc. So I'm going to see you next time, and we're going to be looking at those annoying buzzes and rattles that happen in guitars. And we'll see if we can find out where they are, what causes them, and how we can sort them out. Till then, stay well, and I'll see you soon.